Welcoming you to a life of awareness, the Presence Project is excited for you to join us for today's podcast with your host, Paul Kerzner.
Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Are You Being Present? My name is Paul Kerzner. I want to welcome you to the present moment. I want to welcome you to the here and now. And I want to thank you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and deeply for joining me on this journey. The topic for today's podcast is crying with presence. The reason why I chose this topic was because I came across a video that really touched me and reminded me that crying, the action of crying, the act of crying, is a presence tool. We could set aside the thoughts that led up to the act, but the act itself can only be done when you're in the present moment. And the video that I watched was by one of our past guest hosts who I've invited back today, StevieAnne Petitt. Stevie, welcome back.
Thank you.
I watched your video and I was really touched by your willingness to be vulnerable. And I think that in society, for men especially, but for women as well, crying is sometimes shameful. It's not something that we are encouraged to do. Right. More so for men than women. For women, I feel like it's a little bit more socially acceptable. But as a man, to cry, it seems like a great stretch. It's almost unheard of, whether it's TV or in real life, like real men don't cry. Mm-hmm. But to be present is to understand that crying is just a part of the spectrum of life. Mm-hmm. It's just part of our experience as human beings. And we need to embrace that, man or woman. We need to embrace what crying represents. Yeah. And, crying is cathartic. There's no two ways about that. And, there's a lot more that I can go on about. I want to open this podcast up to you because, I think that you have a unique perspective and more so a willingness to share yourself with the community and show people that something like crying is okay.
I'm very blessed because I don't know that where the videos are now, 2 years into my journey, I never would have thought that I would be so candid about my process. Like I honestly didn't. But what happened was maybe, 2 years ago, I started documenting me processing things aloud. And at first I would ask questions. Like I'd ask people on the video, I'd say, well, are you guys confused about this? Am I the only one? So I was really expressing a lot out loud. And then more often than I was getting people answering me, most people were messaging me privately and telling me, oh my gosh, you said things that I've been thinking. You asked things that I've been wondering. Thank you for showing up vulnerably and authentically. I don't know how you do it. And so more and more that fed, to be honest, the part of me, the ego, but it fed that part of me that felt of value to the community. So I almost became like a mouthpiece. And they gave me permission to keep showing up and processing out loud. And then that has become an addiction in a little bit. I mean, I look forward every day to creating something where I'm expressing, because expression alone shifts things. And I was told a while back that the term introvert and extrovert have nothing to do with you being shy or what have you. It's how we process information. And me as an extrovert, I like to hear feedback from other people and I like to hear myself express, because when I do, somehow that prioritizes my thoughts. And it's the same with writing. So that's how I express. It's extrovert. It's not an introverted. I have to say it aloud. I have to write it out. And so knowing that, I started to express more and more and more, and I would process on film. And because the community would continuously express their gratitude for me showing up in that regard, it just, I don't know, it gave me permission. So I'm like super grateful because I get to just share my journey, and that alone is good enough. I can cry and then laugh maniacally and then and not get anywhere. No answers, no nothing, but somehow the expression alone and allowing the emotion, that alone somehow reflects back healing to other people. And then I feel good because they return that to me. They return to me gratitude. So it's the strangest thing.
So by giving yourself permission
Yes.
to emote, you are
Yes.
subsequently giving other people permission
Yes.
to emote, and then
Yes.
their receptivity feeds your permission to give yourself
Yes.
to emote.
And so it's just a cry fest. And it's like passionate ping pong. Like, I'm not even kidding. Every single week, at least one every week, I get a message from someone who says, you said what I didn't want to say, or I don't know how you do it. Like, your face looks hideous and but you show up anyway. And then so I started to, it's so funny because now I actually watch the videos after I've shared them. I know that spirit is working in those moments because I'm present. My ego, it falls away. Like you said, when you're really feeling what's happening and you're emoting and you're allowing, you just allow, and you don't let the ego come in to say, oh, you know what, your face right now looks extremely distorted, you should stop, or you shouldn't post this. I don't edit any of my videos anymore. I'll be wiping debris from my face. Like, I don't edit it anymore. I just let it go. And now I've been watching them back. I watch the videos back, and it's so strange because it's almost like my higher self witnessing ego Stevie processing. It's the strangest thing. And then I cry as I'm watching myself cry because it's the strangest thing. And I know it seems so out there, but it's really, there's something so beautiful about allowing ourselves to express. And crying is so cathartic, like you said. You can't stimulate thought when you're really, truly crying. And sometimes I'm crying in grief for the world. And other times I'm crying blissed out of my mind that I can't even believe that I'm here.
And I could tell you from the male perspective, sometimes it's hard for men to understand why women are crying, and it makes us feel weird. But I think we have to transcend that as a sex.
Yeah.
And that, men, maybe you're not crying in public, and that's fine, but there is a time and a place to start emoting properly.
Yeah.
And, if this is permission for you that I'm giving you, or that at least we're acknowledging that it's okay to cry. Yeah. It's a powerful way to process your emotions, but it is also a presence tool. So in that moment, when you're overcome with grief or joy or whatever the emotion is, and you feel those tears well up, it's okay to let them go.
And allow. Oh my gosh, allow it. Don't
I think
stifle or suppress.
That's where that judgment comes in.
Yes.
And so the judgment that you're feeling, that you're expressing, that you're allowing more than anything, has absolutely nothing to do with the present moment. It is a judgment of how you were, how you should be, how you're going to be, but it never is how you are. Because if you truly understood in that moment how you are, you would say, you know what, maybe crying is appropriate. Okay, so maybe we cry for presence. Maybe we cry with presence.
Yeah.
And watching you cry. I wouldn't say that I started crying, but I will say that there was a tear that welled up. And then I said, oh, okay, I get it. I understood in that moment. I said, there's something here that needs to be explored. And there's a message that I want to share, not only with men, but with women, that, crying is important. Yeah. It has a time and a place. And I'm not saying everyone needs to be crying all the time. Okay. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if you're truly being present, and if you feel the tears come, let them Let them
Yeah.
be. It's not a matter of, like, I need to control this. Okay, no. You shouldn't be controlling something like that because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And, like,
Body's natural response. It's releasing and moving energy, if you will,
yeah, and releasing energy, that's powerful by itself. And who are we to get in the way?
Right.
I mean, why would you want to trap emotion?
Yeah.
And like, I don't talk a lot about being an acupuncturist on this podcast, but, from a Chinese perspective, like, we don't want stagnation. We don't want things to get stuck, and emotions can get stuck, and then they turn into things.
That's right.
And the last thing we want is for fear, grief, whatever it is, to get lodged somewhere, because it becomes something.
Right.
I didn't intend on going on such a diatribe, but it's important to have this conversation, to say, you know what, crying is okay, and we need to be okay with it, and we need to see more people crying.
And it does suck you into the present moment, because you can't stimulate thought when you're truly immersed in just allowing. There's no judgment or criticism, perhaps curiosity, if anything. You just go, wow, behold, I'm crying, and I'm just going to allow this, and it's really wild. But then you do feel present. You take on, you allow yourself to truly embrace each fleeting moment of emoting, and you witness yourself emoting, and it's you can't help but be present.
100%. I think it's really good that on this podcast it wasn't just me, that we have the yin and yang, that we have the male and female perspective here, because as I was saying, as a man, it's hard. We're like we are raised in some way by society, maybe not our parents, but by society, to say no. You need to be tough. And it's not like we're trying to raise people to not be tough or to be tough. We need to encourage people to just be, more than anything, to feel their feelings, to be expressive and not judgmental, ultimately, for other people, but more so for ourselves. And so the message for the men that are listening right now is that, enough's enough. It's okay. It's okay to watch other people cry, and it's okay for you to cry. And we're not saying that you're going to turn into some crybaby. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that it's for you to really be present. You have to enter into a state of allowance for all emotions, not for the ones that you think that you should feel, or that the ones that you deem appropriate or acceptable. And so if you're going to join us on the path, and your goal is presence, then don't get in the way of something that's really so beautiful. So that could be so cathartic. That could be so relieving more than anything.
Yeah, there's just recently, a couple months ago, my very first meeting with someone I'm working with. He and I sat down at a coffee shop, and we were talking about what we're passionate about. And I said, tell me what you're really passionate about. Like, what do you want for the world? And he started to talk about it, and he started to cry. And it was like time stopped, total present moment. And I was so blown away by his ability to be authentically himself, however that showed up in that moment. And I think, so that was that piece, witnessing that in a man, which honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a man stronger, to allow, despite stereotypes, despite judgment and criticism, to show up authentically is the greatest expression of self, especially when expression in that moment is crying. And then secondly, I think that women, we don't want to show that we're too sensitive. There's kind of this movement where, well, aren't you going to get my door? And then you get our door, and we say, I can get my own door. There's this interesting, I think women need to remember that one of our superpowers is undoubtedly our ability to feel. And to be nurturing and intuitive, and to allow feeling and expression and emoting. That's one of the things that make us so beautiful, I think. So if we can express that and hold that sacred space for our men to cry too, oh my goodness.
And again, we're not trying to make people cry all the time. We're just trying to encourage the allowance to
when it comes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and that's the shift that needs to take place so that we can meet each other in the middle.
Yeah.
So that you're not looking for that stoic man, because you know what? Like, those men, they're not going to tell you how they feel at all. And then you're going to get frustrated that he's not communicating with you.
Right.
Okay, so, and you don't want to find, and you don't want an overly emotional man because he's going to be crying all the time. It's like, well, then what do you want?
Just someone who's authentically being themselves each present moment, and they know that they're in a space with someone who can appreciate the present too. And when we allow that, when we allow ourselves to express, we allow other people to express. And that's honestly, I think, what we're all trying to do is just be the greatest expression of ourselves. And the only way you can do that is by being in the present moment, not worried about the future, not worried about the past, but just being completely in love with the present moment, however that shows up.
It's authentic is a word that's come up quite a few times in this podcast. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a pursuit that we all need to envelop, that we all need to look at, is where do we stand in our authenticity? Mm-hmm. Are we walking the talk? Are we living our truths more than anything? And so, allowance also plays into that. So authenticity and allowance play into our ability to emote properly in the moment and to live our truths. All those things lead up to our allowance to do something like crying or laughing or whatever it is in that moment without a sense of judgment or allowing our ego to interfere.
Right.
And determine who we are and what we are.
Right, because the past would say, oh, I'm not supposed to cry to this. And then the future would say, well, what would people think of me if I did cry? But if we just simply allowed, and even like you said, not crying, but perhaps it's laughing, just allow ourselves to emote, however that's going to show up, that's honoring the present moment as it's surfacing.
Yeah, 100%.
Very healing.
This topic, I'm glad that we had a chance to tackle. I think that a lot of people are going to find it really relevant. And if anything, it'll just be a reinforcement for some people who already know it. Mm-hmm. But it's good information. We have to all work towards getting to a place in our lives where we have no judgment. And it's, that is a quest by itself. Because we're so quick to judge others, we judge ourselves, we create a reality based on judgment.
Yes.
Because that's what we're accustomed to, that's what we're taught. Mm-hmm. And it takes a conversation like this, it takes many conversations to address that and say, well, you know what? No. We need to set aside judgment so that you can say, and do exactly who you are, who you want to be, and where, and who, what you're trying to work towards ultimately.
Yes.
So crying. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Stevie, if you want to start crying right now, it's okay.
In this present moment.
But we shouldn't force that. So that's okay.
I could cry on command.
Yeah, no.
There's so much to cry for, though, truly, Now my tears have turned into tears of gratitude, mostly. But I do still cry and grieve sometimes. But the thing is, like you said, it's allowing it. And I think the greatest thing that comes from it is the passionate ping pong. You do it, and then other people say, oh my gosh, thank you for doing that. You allowed me to do that. And then you hear that and you go, oh, so that vulnerability actually made me of value to the community. Well, now here I am crying again in gratitude because I can't believe that it was so well met. It's wild how when we express, we give other people permission to do the same. And that's why we have to allow things to organically evolve the way that they're going to and not stifle them or suppress them. It's so important.
Yeah. And, that's one of the other messages for this podcast is that, give yourself permission and understand that by doing that, you're entering into service to others.
Yes.
And it's not like you're doing it. It's not like you're saying, I'm giving myself permission to cry right now because it's going to help someone else. You don't know where the ripple ends.
Right.
You just know that you started the ripple.
Right.
So, Stevie, welcome back to the podcast, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
I know.
Do you want to take this moment to share with the audience how they can find you.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I'm going to cry. Well, I'm always on Facebook, StevieAnne, one word, Petitt. And then you can see me typically in a video crying behind my seatbelt of my Jeep. Usually in gratitude. I pull over a lot. Now I've been pulling over because the present moment is too much to bear. So that's definitely where you'll find me. It's just on Facebook. I love to connect with people there.
We're not encouraging people to cry and drive.
Pull over and passionately express.
That is the responsible thing to do.
It is, yeah. That's what's been happening
Good.
A lot lately.
Good.
That's being present.
Yes.
It's when you have the wherewithal to pull over to cry. But it's tears of gratitude. So,
and those
even
are
better.
Great tears.
Yeah,
as well
but
as
any tears, let them all
tears.
come. Yeah. And if it happens on the freeway, pull over.
Yes. No freeway driving and crying, please. Please, please.
Right.
Stevie, thank you for coming back on the podcast.
Paul, for having me.
I want to thank everyone for listening, and I want to welcome everyone back to the present moment.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Being Present podcast, brought to you by the Presence Projects. Remember, you have a choice. Choose to be present.